Rugby league. It's a great sport, rugby league, and just out of curiosity, can you sort of tell us how you got into rugby league and what your role entails over at Salford?
Yep, certainly. So my history with rugby league goes back to being about 11 years old, courtesy of my dad. He was a rugby league fan, so he introduced me to the sport, and we were watching a Challenge Cup semi-final on the TV, and I said I wanted to go to a rugby game one day. So about 2 weeks later, we were in the stands at Wembley watching a Wigan and Saints Challenge Cup final, and I was hooked ever since then. So that was a long, long time ago. And fast forward to now, being at Salford, this is my 6th season as the soft tissue therapist with the team, and I love every minute of it. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a dream job, really, given my history from enjoying the sport from childhood. I've never played it. I'm not brave enough for that. But I really enjoy being part of the team and playing a small part in their successes.
That's really interesting. And you do the soft tissue massage. Is there any specific injuries that you find recurring theme in rugby league? Is there any sort of injuries that you generally come across in the rugby league world from a sporting point of view?
Well, we obviously, as the medical department, I work alongside Rob and Beth, the two physios at Salford. We try and do as much as is realistically possible to prevent injuries. But as the lads insist on running into each other at great speed, there's a lot of injuries that we can't avoid, and are sometimes just purely accidental and part of the sport, with it being full contact. So obviously, as much prevention as is possible. But when players do get injured, we, work hard together to try and make sure that they get as an efficient and quick rehabilitation as possible, and obviously return them to the field as soon as is realistically possible, so that they can contribute to the team and get back to doing what they enjoy doing. Yeah, no, exactly. And
I think that one of the frustrating things sometimes in sport is injuries to key personnel, or to any personnel for that matter. That's in rugby league and many other sports where you want the players to be playing, or you want to have a full squad for selection. And know that rugby league, it's a physical sport, physical contact sport. So you can do all you will in terms of doing the best to prevent injuries, warming up, warming down, all the things that go with it. But ultimately, in the end, it's the impact sport as well, and that's the challenge. And do you find there's certain times of the season that you get more injuries than others, or is it just generally consistent throughout the season?
Well, there's not really kind of like a specific time in the year that we earmark. Maybe the Easter period, with the volume of work that the lads have to get through. We play Good Friday and Easter Monday, so it's obviously a very short turnaround for the players, and those that have to play in both games, obviously they're not completely recovered by the time the Monday game comes around, but it's not often in those particular games where the injuries occur. It tends to be a couple of weeks after that period. So it's the cumulative effect of training and the games and so on that tend to kind of increase some of the risk factors. But again, we do as much as is humanly possible and use as many resources as we have available to us to try and recover the players as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and make sure that they are physically and mentally looked after over really tricky periods of the year like that. Obviously, towards the end of the season, when they've played a lot of games, again, it's a cumulative effect, but we endeavour to try and just keep everybody as well as possible. The group of players that we've got at the moment are fantastic at looking after themselves, as well as taking on board the provision that we give for them as well. So we've got a really professional group at the moment, which is a joy to work with, because you don't want to be nagging all the time. So it makes our lives easier in the medical department, having a group of players that, kind of understand what they need to do to keep the bodies well and perform at the best.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing. I think that's really important. That certainly, at the professional level of the game, that athletes do take a sense of responsibility as well. And I think it's not easy. That's for sure. When the games are coming thick and fast, and I think there are things we can control, things that we can't control. I think all we can do is focus on the controllables. And obviously, any contact sport, there's always going to be liability. Sometimes I think as well, Sarah, it's sod's law as well. While I'm not a big advocate of luck, I think sometimes any professional team goes through phases where it's just one of them things, really. All you can do is the best possible way to prevent injury. You mentioned also, I spoke to you earlier today and talked about the event you're doing tomorrow. It's quite a fascinating one. You're doing some rowing tomorrow for the British Heart Foundation. Can you tell us a bit about how you got involved in that the charity event for the British Heart Foundation, the rowing? Tell us a bit about the rowing event and how you got involved in it and how people can sort of get behind it too.
So, so it's a bit of a personal endeavour, this one. Tomorrow would have been my dad's 80th birthday, but sadly we lost my dad almost 19 years ago to a heart attack. So he won't be around for the big family party that he would undoubtedly have thrown. So I was in the gym one day and just passing time and found myself kind of plonked on the rower for a long period of time and got off and thought that wasn't too bad. And then had this harebrained idea to row 80 kilometres in memory of my dad and his 80th birthday. And then I stupidly said it out loud to a few people and then made myself accountable for it. So I set up, I did a few training rows just to make sure that obviously I wasn't going to do myself a mischief while taking part. But when I realised that it was a possibility, I set up a Just Giving page in the middle of January. And today it's just been unbelievable. I've been tweeting about it and the response has just been, it's been quite overwhelming, to be honest. The fund is just short of £1,000 at the moment, which is just, I mean, I set my target at £100 to start off with and was just happy to, to kind of have a go. But the support from obviously family and friends, work colleagues. I'm a physiotherapy student at Salford University, and my friends on the cohort there have been fantastic supporting me. Obviously, the Salford lads, they've been chipping in and kind of really encouraging me, asking me about my training, and making sure that I'm keeping myself accountable. So it's been fantastic, and I'm actually, in a very strange way, actually looking forward to getting stuck in tomorrow and paying everybody back in some sweat and probably a few tears as well.
No, that's fantastic that you're doing that, and I think that it's obviously a cause that's very close to you, and I think it's important that people like yourself do raise awareness, do raise funding, and do get the message out there. That's for sure. A lot of people do a lot of great work in the area, and there's still a lot to learn. And I think the thing is too, I think the other thing too, that I actually have a colleague of mine or someone I used to work with before on radio, and he sort of made a big effort to raise awareness for defibrillators, which is obviously a different matter altogether. But in the last few years, there's been cases of young people as well who've had heart conditions in sport as well, and he's made a really big effort to raise awareness and encourage young people to get themselves checked out. So it's one of the things, really. I think that the point being is it can affect anyone at any age, and it's so vague, and it's great that people like yourself are raising awareness out there. That's for sure, because I think that a lot of people are working tirelessly to get more of an insight in terms of research, but it can never be too much research. And did you yourself take time to pace yourself to that distance? Do you sort of keep yourself physically active, or is it something that you've just focused on its own, or is it something you've built up towards doing, the rowing, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this event is kind of like a bit of an unusual one. It's a very long distance event, and it's so my focus training wise has literally just been plonking myself on the rower for extended periods of time and just getting some time in. And it's the physical side is obvious, it's hard work keeping going for that length of time, but it's more the kind of the mental side, and your self-talk is really important. You get to points where you're kind of in a bit of a hole and you can't really see the meters clocking down, and it does get difficult at times, but that is kind of almost a part of the challenge that I'm kind of looking forward to, because it's a bit of a mental test as well as a physical test. And I took a bit of inspiration from an old colleague of mine, an ex-Salford Devils employee who, Josh Taylor, he did a 24-hour row for the Alzheimer's Society, kind of early, well, it was at the end of last year, and it was a phenomenal effort, and it just really kind of outlined to me that you can do things that you put your mind to, and they might be a bit arduous and hard work, but if you prepare yourself properly, then you can get things done. So I'm really looking forward, like I say, to getting stuck in tomorrow, and hopefully it's the first of a few challenges that I can set up for myself, and like you say, maybe look to support allied charities in the future, like Cry UK, which is the Cardiac Risk in Young charity, who they come annually to all rugby league clubs and test our players and give them a screening. Obviously, we take player welfare and health and safety very, very seriously, and the Cry team come and visit us at the club and give all the players a bit of an MOT. And if anything was ever to flag up, it would be an opportunity for us to investigate further. And then obviously there's the Danny Jones defibrillator fund as well. Danny Jones was a player that was lost whilst playing rugby a couple of years ago, and his wife has campaigned tirelessly since then to make sure defibrillators are in the right places, so that hopefully if anything was to happen in the future, there would be the equipment and the personnel there to be able to stop anything bad from happening.
Absolutely, to stand the best possible chance anyway, and that's the sort of key in that respect. And I think that it'd be great if they could roll testing across academic institutions and schools as well at some point. I think that it's important that we test every or as many young people as possible, or people of all ages really, if there's somehow we can bring in, and obviously funding, time and constraints, but then what price can you put on saving one's life? And it's a big thing, I think, definitely. And the last few years that we've seen some high profile people, there's this sort of stereotype, and we've sort of begun to realise that actually they're people who are very, very fit and healthy, so to speak, and this sort of thing doesn't discriminate against anybody. And I think there are things we can do in general for our health, at least where things are generally concerned, but obviously there's a lot of things out there that still being researched and will carry on being researched. But I think the work that's being done at the rugby league clubs, like you said, there is really important. And I do believe a few years ago the same sort of screening was rolled out, or at least similar screening in football as well. And I think it's really important, that's for sure. Now, I believe also that you're sort of supporting Aaron Palmer, who's running the 22 10K races in memory of the 22 lives lost at Manchester Arena, which is a commendable effort for him to do that. I don't know a great deal behind the story, only what I've read sort of on the papers, but it's a massive effort from him to run so many. I don't know how many runs he's through already anyway, but and your role with him, is it sort of helping him from a soft tissue massage role? Sarah, are you sort of supporting him in that way, or?
Yeah, it is. I was made aware of Aaron's efforts over Twitter, again, social media, kind of bringing these things to light. And it was actually Ian Blease, our director at Salford, who replied to a tweet that had been put out and saying that Aaron could come and access my services at the club, which I was more than happy to help with, obviously. So Aaron came down and he obviously had a bit of treatment, and we kind of gave him a few running repairs to keep him going. And he obviously told us all about this huge undertaking that he's doing. So I think he's over halfway now. I think he's about race 15 done. So he's on the kind of like home straight, as it were. But I don't know if you'll get a chance to speak to Aaron in the future, but he was actually there on the night of the attack, in the capacity of police officer, and he's since retrained. He's now a firefighter. So he's very close to his heart, obviously, having seen the fallout from that night. And having had close contact with some of the families that were involved since that night. So it's a massive undertaking, but he's very serious about trying to raise as much money as is possible for, initially it was for the families. The emergency fund has now been closed, so the first portion of his fundraising has been donated to the emergency fund, and now the remainder of his fundraising will be donated to the memorial fund, which again is, I think, very important going forward, so that we all have a place to kind of remember what happened that night, and to commemorate the lives that were lost. So it was a no-brainer for me to say yes to helping him out. And we've had a few treatment sessions and a bit of strapping on a sore ankle to keep him going. But he's doing an amazing job. So
absolutely,
we'll be there cheering him over the line in May when he does his last one.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important that obviously people like Aaron do the great work that they do. And I mean, from a financial point of view, it's great that you can raise funds, but also from the point of view, from a psychological point of view, it's really important that in memory of the lives, that tragedy that happened in the evening, that we sort of make sure that it's there in the forefront of our minds, and obviously life goes on for many people, but the people who've lost people, it's tough. It's not easy, and I think that it's certainly affected many people in the city. And I think that one thing it did show about Manchester and the Northwest, how strong it is and how galvanised it is in times of need and in times of adversity, how the city certainly comes together. And sport is one thing, and we all like to compete, and it's great. I love my sport, and we all love our sport, but obviously I think that there's another side to sport that galvanizes people together as well. And I think that certainly this week one of the themes is being hate crime, and one of the things that sort of struck me on the radio in this area, just how united people are in terms of not tolerating hatred, and I think it's really important that we can appreciate our differences, but obviously make sure that we're there to support each other as a community. One of the things I like about the rugby league, that's for sure, it is definitely a communal club, and it represents the community, and it's a great thing to have in the community. Do you get that sort of sense of communal feeling with the rugby league club as well? The Salford Red Devils, Sarah, do you find that you guys tend to do a lot of great work from what I can see, and it's quite a communal club from the outside looking in? Is that the case? Is it a communal sort of club, or?
Yeah, very much so. Last year, the club was kind of passed over to the community, as it were. And so we are very community focused, always have been since in my time with the club. The lads are consistently out doing promotional activities around the area, and promoting health and wellness to kids in schools, and doing, they are role models ultimately, and their presence in the local area is recognised and and kind of celebrated. So around the calendar of fixtures that we have, the lads do get out and about and get involved in as many local community projects as they can do, and then obviously on a bigger scale with things like the attack in Manchester at the time. It was really important that we showed a bit of solidarity. There was a massive response from the fans. There was huge banner created by some of the fans, and that was on display in the stands, and the lads were they wanted to kind of put on a good game for the people that had come out, despite what had gone on kind of earlier in that week. And I think it was something, there was some really weird coincidences that night. I think our number 22 scored in the 22nd minute, or something random like that. It was just a night of, it was a real special night, and I mean, I'm using that as an example, obviously in reference to what we've just spoken about, but very much the community as a whole, and like I say, the fans, they're very, very passionate about their club. Salford fans love their club, so they're very there's not as many of them as perhaps we would like, but the ones we have are very vocal and very proactive in their means of promoting the club and its community efforts and so on. So we just really appreciate their support, and always look forward to having them down at the stadium.
Yeah, which is a nice stadium too you guys have got. It's a nice setup you've got there, and I think that from the point of view, I can imagine, players, walk out onto the ground. It's a nice modern setup as well, and obviously the club's got a lot of tradition. It's been around for a long, long time, the club, that's for sure, and to go with that is a great stadium too. It must be great for the players to get out there and play and entertain, and that's one of the beauties about rugby league. I think it's an action-packed sport and end-to-end stuff, and the Super League's not an easy league to play, and that's for sure. There's a lot of teams there that are going to be confident going this season. I think from the outside looking in, Sarah, this year the Super League it's pretty open in the sense that some good teams, some good players, and a lot of teams will have a lot of expectation. I mean, you guys got off to a good start last week, and you've got a tough game against London this week as well. But from the point of view of the camp, the mood, I mean, what's the sort of feeling in terms of this season? You care to share what the buzz is? I mean, so I guess at the start of every season there's an optimism and everything else that goes with it, but do you sort of sense an optimism this season, or...?
Yeah, very much so. I think, when you speak to anybody involved with any team at this time of year, everybody's in good spirits. Everybody's, kind of like wants to hit the ground running and wants to get a really good start to their season. All of those things are kind of a bit of a given, but genuinely, this group we've got this year is fantastic. They're as kind of happy on the field as they are off the field. They've all got a really good work ethic. They work hard. Again, most players will tell you they've had a tough pre-season, but being stood on the sidelines and watching them slug it out over the last few winter months, they really have all dug in and put in the hard yards, and it's time now just to kind of really appreciate what all that hard work can do, and just put it all out on the field. So we'll be looking forward to the game this Sunday at the AJ Bell. Like you say, we've got London this week, so they're newly promoted, and again, full of confidence and feeling feeling good off the back of a great win last week, I'm sure. So it should be a really good game to watch. So
absolutely,
come down.
No, absolutely. No, we do encourage people to support our local teams. And one thing's for sure about the Salford area is there's certainly spoilt for a number of great sports people and athletes, and you've got some great teams in the area in football. You've got obviously rugby league, and I think that one of the things about Salford, it is a communal feel about the area, and certainly I think that we do encourage people to get down there and watch the spectacle of rugby league. It's a great sport. It's a magnificent sport. The participants, the people who play rugby league, amongst the best athletes in the world, to play at that intensity for that sort of duration, 80 minutes, it takes a lot going, and that's for sure. So the spectacle they put on and end-to-end stuff, and I think for me, like you say, is one of the great things about that is having the players go down to schools and get involved in the community, and for a young person at a school to see their local hero turn up, it's a huge thing. It's very inspirational, I think, for anyone of any age, and certainly for a young person to see a great athlete, because you don't get athletes there's not many athletes as well fine-tuned and conditioned as the rugby league athletes. They are phenomenal. The training's phenomenal, and to have people like yourself to support them as well goes a long way towards injury prevention and playing to the best of the ability. And do you find yourself, Sarah, sort of who motivate? Do you have your own way of motivating yourself? I can imagine you're highly motivated, but all that said and done, I can imagine the work you do physically and mentally can sort of take its toll in one sense. Do you find, are there ways that you keep yourself in I mean, being in that environment, I suppose, is a positive thing, but generally speaking, are the ways you sort of keep yourself motivated and focused, or you just naturally that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's important for everybody to kind of decompress. Obviously, the players, they're putting themselves physically through the mill and mentally as well. It takes a lot of concentration, a lot of mental preparation, kind of individually as a team, with the coaches and so on. And it's important to take those opportunities throughout the season when they are there to kind of just decompress a little bit and just take a breath, because it's quite easy to kind of keep yourself in that rugby league bubble, and not come up for air very much. So yeah, I've got family, I've got a dog. I enjoy my own training. I just take time out to do the things that I enjoy, really. I've generally got quite a positive outlook, so I try not to let anything kind of get on top too much. But we all have our kind of ups and downs, certainly. But it's just taking time out to do the things that I enjoy, and just remember that there's life outside of work, and also kind of revel in the fact that I'm actually doing kind of a bit of a dream job,
Absolutely.
And I still feel that way. I still get excited when I go to work. I still get excited on a game day. My colleagues will probably tell you that I've not really crossed the line from fan to professional on the sidelines yet, because I do tend to whoop and holler a little bit when we score a try. I think that that as long as I've always got that, then I'll always enjoy it, and it doesn't feel like work to me. So I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really want to thank you for coming on board the show, Sarah. It's been a delight speaking to you, and I want to wish you all the best for tomorrow's event, and also be great to have Aaron on the show as well too, and to cover what he's doing, because I think what he's doing is phenomenal. The 22 10K runs is phenomenal, and I think that you supporting him is great too. So I want to thank you again for coming on board the show. I wish you every best for the season. Hopefully we get you back on board the show again at some point too. Thanks again, Sarah.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All hate crimes and incidences should be reported, whether you've been a victim or you're reporting on behalf of someone else. Salford City Radio is proud to support Hate Crime Awareness Week 2019.
Hate crime incidents hurt. They can be confusing and frightening. By reporting them when they happen to you, you may be able to prevent these incidents from happening.